Congresswoman, people have been instructed to stay home to keep them safe. What goes through your mind when you see these images?
Look, I understand as well as anybody does about being frustrated about staying home. I've been home for 31 to 32 days today by myself, no physical being near anybody. And Ron wouldn't have given you a penny that I could do that for 32 minutes. But what happened yesterday was inexcusable. People did not have masks. They did not have gloves. They did not distance themselves. They had Confederate flags, swastikas. They blocked an ambulance trying to get to a hospital. Bringing hate and fear into a time that is already full of fear and anxiety is just unacceptable. There were people barehanded handing candy to children. What they did was to help spread this disease around the state more, most likely, not contribute to the mitigation. And it just made me sad.
Ron, what in the world's going on?
Well, I got to say, having Debbie Dingell in isolation for 30 days does defy nature, first of all. What's going on is pandemic politics is trumping pandemic policies. And when that happens, people die. Look, it's totally understandable if people want to oppose the governor's policies or to accuse her of rehearsing for the vice presidency. But you can't distort her record, which has been happening. And you can't encourage people to gather en masse during a pandemic, which is what is happening. It's inexcusable. It's dangerous. And I just hate to see the D.C. brand of ugly partisan politics making its way into Michigan, into Lansing, like a toxic vine. But that's what's been happening this last week or so.
But Ron, why is this political? This is a public health crisis.
It's political because everything is political nowadays. This just shows you how dysfunctional we've become as a society, that everything is red versus blue, us versus them. There was a couple of weeks here in this state where the Republican-controlled lawmakers were working well with the Democratic governor. That has fallen apart. So you have traditional, ugly, modern-day politics on top of, understandable fear and anxiety. People want to be out. People don't want to be under the siege of this pandemic. But unfortunately, these are the cards that we've been dealt, not by a politician, not by a governor, but by human nature or by Mother Nature. And if we don't come together and appeal to our better angels, we're going to fall apart.
Congresswoman, do you tie this, though, to economic pain and anxiety? Roughly a quarter of Michigan's eligible workforce is now filing for unemployment. I think back to 2008, Michigan was among the hardest hit states. Is this still the pain and suffering of people who are not back on their feet, who finally have jobs again, the fact that they're now being told to stay at home and they don't have any money?
So I think what we've tried to do at the federal government level is to try to ensure that they're going to get unemployment. Small businesses and restaurants, it's not been the smoothest process, are going to get cash inflows while we're in this situation. People are scared. People are scared no matter who you are, where you are from. This is a terrifying time. But, I'm going to say one thing to Ron and to all of you listening. I don't think we have to accept what this politics as usual. I think that this is a time that we are expected to lead, that we need to pull together. I was on the phone on a bipartisan delegation call with the governor this morning, and my Republican colleagues in Michigan are some of my best friends. I said to all of them, we got to be together. I think the people of Michigan don't want to see us playing partisan politics right now. They want to see us leading. They want us to ensure that they're going to be protected. I know a lot of workers want to go back to work, but we can't guarantee that when they go back to work, they're going to be safe yet. We got to work together so that we are protecting those jobs, that they're jobs to go back to, that will re-engage with the economy when it's safe. And we're not going to do it in a partisan way. I will not say a bad word about our president right now. It is not the time to politic. It is not the time to be partisan. We got to work together to get this country back up on its feet.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.